forward to perhaps a macro one here.
Yeah, we'll see what's going to be happening as we now start game two in this best of seven series. CheckSix taking the early victory and dealing first blood with a win on Shattered Temple by Fargo, Terran versus Zerg, and we'll see if Hasu will stop the bleeding and try to even up the score as this game now gets underway. Fargo spawning as the blue Terran player on the bottom left hand side of the map. Meanwhile, Hasu spawning as the green Protoss player on the top left hand side of the map. It isn't going to be cross spawns, and based upon dispositions, who do you think has the better advantage?
Well, I think Hasu has to expand basically towards his opponent, whereas Fargo can probably expand a little bit farther away. I know a lot of players don't like these positions. They like the strict cross positions. That way, your third and your natural aren't, going towards your opponent so much. So, uh, we'll see how it plays out. I think in this matchup, it's not going to be too much of an advantage. Probably not a lot of drops going to be coming in, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I'm kind of curious about is whether or not Colossi and Siege tanks will be able to attack from the low ground onto that natural expansion. Just because of the way the natural expansion is for Check Six's Fargo, how exposed it is and how close it is to the path that Hasu would normally take. His SCVs may get torched a little bit more if it was vice versa. Check Six or anyone who's played against a Terran player on Tall Dream Altar knows that Terran players can hug the corner, get some sight with a Viking or a Medevac, and then just start blasting away with those 13 range siege tanks.
Yeah, it can be very difficult to deal with, but if you get some charge lots out or you get some colossi out, it can be a little bit easier to engage. We see pretty normal openings from both players. We do not yet see a gas from Fargo, so maybe he might be going for a one Rax expand. We'll have to see. Next few minutes will be crucial determining what his build's going to be. Hasu is getting up that gas, a little bit harder for Protoss to go gasless at the start. But he is getting up to one gateway, so he could himself go for a gateway expand. Both players in this match are very easy, especially on this map, to get up a fast expansion and defend any early pressure.
Yeah, most definitely. As Hasu now getting a little bit of damage on the SCVs, and now two SCVs coming back to double team, and Hasu loses
Oh.
his scouting probe. So a little bit of a mistake there, as we'll see what exactly Fargo is going to be doing. It looks like a command center will be built at the natural expansion, and I'm curious as to why Fargo is building his command center at the natural expansion location while his wall is so far away. It would almost seem to make more sense if Fargo had built the command center and upgraded it to an orbital command on one side just in case there was any sort of early pressure, as we are now going into two gates and an SCV is going to be able to quickly scout this out and perhaps try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, this is an interesting build from Hasu, getting out this second gateway very quickly. We'll see what he produces off of it. It looks like it's going to be double stalkers, and they're rallied way over in right outside the natural of Fargo. So these stalkers going to have basically a field day with any Marines that attempt to defend here. It's going to force Fargo to get up a bunker. So that is going to be underway, and I think that bunker will be finished by the time the stalkers make it over there. So they are going to basically be able to hold off those stalkers. No additional stalkers coming out for Hasu, though he is a little bit supply capped. And here comes a third stalker. So if Hasu's able to do some micro here, he could poke at that bunker, poke at these Marines, and only take shield damage. We'll see what he's able to do.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. There are going to be four Marines inside that bunker, and the Stalkers kind of have to be careful now. The Stalkers and Marines in a bunker have the same range, so the Stalker advantage of being able to move a little bit more quickly is going to be nullified here, as Hasu, with those two heavily invested Stalkers, may not be able to get more than some superficial damage onto a bunker, which can then be salvaged.
Yeah, we see that Hasu getting up his own expansion here. It's going to be behind Fargo, definitely, and Fargo going to have the double mules coming out. And we see that Hasu doing a nice job here, pressuring that bunker, pulling back anytime his units are about to lose actual HP instead of just shield. So we'll see what he's able to do with these three stalkers. If he's able to pick off an SCV or two, maybe a lone Marine, that could be a win for him.
Yeah, so these three stalkers are very, very heavily invested. And right now, I think Hasu realizes that he's not going to get a lot of mileage. And he is going to end up being a little bit behind as we now see Fargo already mining with two mules at his natural expansion. He has a 24 to 22 probe advantage in addition to two extra mules. And one thing you got to remember is that he chrono boosted out three stalkers. And so that means that that was three less probes that he could have chrono boosted out. And right now, Hasu has a little bit of a hill to climb, and we'll see what he's going to be able to do.
And he's actually been chrono boosting out his warp gate tech as well. So that's going to be another few probes that it's going to cost him. And now he's going to have warp gate tech up. He's going to be able to start producing units off these 3 warp gates. But, would you rather have 4 probes instead of, that warp gate tech coming up just a little bit faster? I guess it's a decision. We'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, right now we can see Fargo with this 5 food advantage. Not much to write home about. It's just fairly even, but I really think it's going to come down to the income advantage. As you see, Fargo about mining 300 to 400 additional minerals over Hasu at this stage. And one thing you got to take a look at Fargo's base as well is how heavily he's invested into just training Marines. He's very happy. He knows that Marines with Stim can easily take down whatever gateway units are coming in, and knows that because he saw that early 2 gate that the expansion is going to be a little bit delayed, and also any sort of tech will be delayed.
Yeah, Fargo just now coming up with a factory, so I imagine he's going to be going directly into medevacs to support these Marines. Right now, Stim is about 3/4 the way done, and he started Terran infantry weapons level 1, so he's going to have +1 on all these Marines, and that's going to do a lot of damage against the mostly gateway units of Hasu, but Hasu just throws down a robotics bay, so the Colossi, especially with extended thermal lance, can rip apart those Marines, even if they're upgraded.
Yeah, and interesting for Hasu. Hasu going for armor upgrades first, and he doesn't have that many sentries. Normally, when I see Protoss players go armor upgrades first, it's because they have a lot of sentries, and with sentries with armor upgrades really nullifies the amount of damage that Marines do from I think 6 down to maybe even 2 or 3 per shot, and then it's just a great balancer there. And we'll see how this is all going to work out. You can see the robotics bay is now being completed. It looks as though he's going to perhaps either start a Colossus first or perhaps get extended thermal lance. Both are going to be a very nice choice, as now there is still a 10 food advantage by Fargo.
Yeah, because Hasu is on that second base just a little bit later, he's going to be on the third and fourth geyser a little bit later, which means he can't invest in all the tech at once. So he's trying to get his gateway upgrades, he's trying to get his robotics bay and his Colossus out, but it's going to be very difficult to do with just the 2 gas for so long. So as you mentioned, his sentry count is quite low. At the moment, he only has 3 sentries. They have very high energy, but if those are focused down quickly by Fargo, it could make that the Guardian Shield just a lot less effective in this first encounter.
Yes, most definitely. As we now see Marines making their way out, Marines combat shield now being started. It doesn't look like it will be done, or will perhaps be done in the middle of the fight. There is currently 1 Colossus out. We are also going into a Twilight Council, and the Stalker did see this really large army come across the field. That second Colossus needs to be chrono boosted, and now we're just starting the extended thermal lance range, and that's going to be perhaps a little bit of a mistake. I think a third Colossus may have been the better choice, as Hasu is now supply blocked at 84 over 84.
Well, Hasu is actually floating a lot of gas, so he could have started that extended thermal lance about 30 seconds ago. So it's going to be a big mistake here if he's not able to take on these Marines without extended thermal lance. We see a drop coming in here by Fargo, and the army is out of position here by Hasu, so he's going to do his best to defend here, but I believe that the Nexus or a lot of probes could even be focused down by the units here, but it looks like we're going to have a quick pickup by Fargo, and not a lot of Stalkers here. Again, very light on gas is Hasu. He's tried to invest in so much tech at once. He added a second forge, as we see the Marines moving in to the natural, able to take down a number of probes, and this could be a fast GG as all these probes are cleaned up by the Marines.
Yeah, so Guardian Shield finally coming up. The armor upgrades have been completed as well. Many of those Marines are stuck, and we'll see whether or not Hasu is going to be able to clean this up. It looks like another drop could be coming in from the backside. No, the Colossi, Sentries, and Zealots are lying in wait, ready to shoot down any Marauders and Marines that are killed there, but there is now a 40 food advantage by Fargo, as Fargo does have his third base almost up and running. You can see that it's about, 80% complete, and he will be able to transfer over some SCVs very quickly, as he's now starting to go into Viking production.
Yeah, let's talk about Harvester County a little bit here too. It's 52 SCVs to 25 probes, so there was 28 workers killed in that attack, basically half the workers of Hasu. So Hasu's gonna have to find a timing here. You might actually just want to invest in army and push out. I'm not sure if trying to build his economy is the best choice here, as he's just gonna be behind Fargo in any sort of macro game. Fargo, as you mentioned, on that third base, making another orbital, so not even feeling like he needs a planetary fortress there. He's gonna have triple mules in just just a moment, and his macro lead is just going to grow and grow as this game moves on. Already 126 compared to the 84 of Hasu, and I think Hasu is trying to do too much at once in that mid game, getting up a second forge, doing double upgrades. He delayed that extended thermal lance. He delayed the third Colossus, and just didn't have the right tech and the right army to defend against that multi-pronged pressure.
Yeah, right now Hasu needs to figure out and stick to a strategy. If he was time, I would say that he would perhaps try to push out, stop his probe production, and then just try to engage with mass probes, colossi, and stalkers, and then put a nail in the coffin, because he knows that the longer this game goes, the worse it's going to be. Fargo's just going to have the proper counter units. You can see that Ghost Academy just got completed, Vikings in the air, so those colossi are not going to be able to deal that much damage. Level 1 ship weapon upgrades as well, so the Vikings are going to be able to shoot down those colossi even more quickly, as we are now getting level 2 weapons and level 2 armor upgrades. So Hasu really trying to go very heavy on the upgrades, but he may not have enough units to just deal with what Fargo's going to have to defend with.
Yeah, there are 9 Vikings out right now compared to the 3 Colossi, and with the ship weapon level 1, it's going to force those Colossi down so quickly. It's just going to be gateway units against the Marines, the Marauders, and the Medivacs, and we know who wins that, especially once Stim gets into the equation. There are upgrades on Hasu's units. He is right now at 2-1, and he's soon going to be at 3-2. So we'll see, how that really factors into the next engagement. Hasu going to be on this third a little bit slower than his opponent, but Fargo knows exactly when that third went down. He had that factory scouting there in position, so maybe he'll take a fourth, or maybe he'll choose the timing here, really push out and pressure and punish Hasu for expanding.
Yeah, I think what Fargo's doing is Fargo just wants to get up to 200 food count, and knows that when he is at 200 food, he's going to have a much larger army than his opponent. Four ghosts are now being trained. I do not think the Mobius reactor was researched. It was not. So he's going to wait for perhaps 75 energy on each of those ghosts, and then engage right around then. He'll have 200 food right at that moment, starting the Mobius reactor in the wrong order apparently, but he is going to have the level 2 infantry upgrades as well for all of his units, and this massive Bioforce will be 2-2 upgraded, and all of those Vikings, there's going to be 13 Vikings in the air, and with 13 Vikings, I believe they can they one-shot a Colossus with the level 1 weapons upgrade?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but just so few Colossus, and I think that's actually going to be something that works out for Hasu, as we see that Fargo is heavily invested in Vikings. They actually may need to land. Let's talk a little bit about macro here, Crota. It's 196 to 127. Fargo has shot ahead. He had a little bit of an advantage, maybe 40, 50 food. He's turned that now into a 70 food advantage, and his macro has just been are excellent so far, just finally hitting 1,000 minerals, now dipping down below, but he is almost maxed out, so he will be banking resources in just a moment. Hasu trying to come out he does have speed lots at this point, and I think this is actually going to be a pretty good position for Hasu. As we see these Vikings working on these Colossi, they do not one-shot him, but quickly taking out 2 of those Colossi. We have EMPs going off, so all of these shields for their Zealots going down very quickly. The Vikings not really sure what they can do here. They're actually going to have to land and try to clean up all these Stalkers, but just too many units here for Fargo. 146 to 69. Hasu going to have to give the GG in just a moment.
Yeah, Hasu now down to 50 food. Fargo has triple his opponent's food right now, and there's not much that Hasu could have really done in that engagement. I think in choosing to try to rebuild his economy after he knew that half of his probes were lost, I think that may have been the beginning of the end for Hasu.